OMORI is a really special game. Something about it is just so beautifully wonderful. Probably the art style. Maybe it's the great soundtrack, the gripping story. But I wanted to know more about OMORI. Where did OMORI come from? What's the story behind the Kickstarter? Well, I decided to do a lot of research on OMORI and its past, how it became the game it did in 2020, and what went wrong with the Kickstarter. I won't be delving too much into the story of the game unless it's necessary, as well it's probably one of my favourite stories told in a video game. I really just want to focus on its development. With that out of the way, enjoy the video. OMORI is an independent artist who created an art blog in 2011. In 2012, she opened an online store for clothing, and she's primarily known for this. She has a very unique style, primarily influenced by anime and video games. Not much is known about OMORI before then, as they don't really reveal too much about their history, and that's completely fine. That's basically the short history. I know it's really short, but let's just go into the future. OMORI's online store would soon host many collaborations between brands such as Pokemon, Hatsune Miku, Doki Doki Literature Club, Hololive, and more. Another thing that OMORI was known for was creating online comics, and this is where we first meet OMORI, or as it's more widely known on this blog, OMORI Boy. The name OMORI comes from a shortened version of the word hikikomori, which is a style of life defined as seeking social isolation and being withdrawn from society. This is somewhat true for the OMORI Boy comics, as in most of the archived comics I could find, OMORI has no friends here, no Aubrey, no Kel, and not even a mention of Mari. By the way, just wanted to put this out there for the next part, none of this is canon to the story of OMORI. The first OMORI comic was posted on December 22nd, and stars the character looking at a camera in a white space. Not white space from the game, but just a white space. OMORI has a tissue box, a laptop, a Game Boy, and a black light. Also, yeah, that's the caption. Yeah, that created that. Yeah, I know. The comics have a trend of having messages related to self-reflection, depression, existentialism, and anger towards others. An example is in the fourth OMORI Boy comic, where OMORI says, "What would happen if I died today? How long would it take for someone to notice? Would anyone even go to my funeral? Probably not, but that's my fault too, I guess." These comics, while really sad and depressing in content, communicate messages that a lot of people can understand and relate to. OMORI wrote in a 5th Kickstarter update that the character OMORI started out as a very personal project. He was a character that I created to help cope with my problems during a confusing part of my life. I posted his character on a blog with a white background, which eventually became what the game calls white space. Drawing him did help me, but the more I posted it, the more I felt that he needed to leave the space he was confined in. He needed to get out. So ironic as it was, I created a story for him to explore and be a part of. The comics ended on March 14th, 2012, but this wouldn't be the last time we would see OMORI in this form, as on August 3rd, 2013, OMORI released a graphic novel that contained more of the story to OMORI, titled OMORI's Story. This contains OMORI and his friends exploring Neighbor's room as well as Headspace. It also somewhat leads into the story of the game, with the hair of Aubrey kind of acting like Mari's hair. I can't really speak for OMORI in this situation, it's just pure speculation on my end. The comic also leads to the Twitter account for the game, which was created around the same time as the comic. I won't be going into these tweets now, that'll be a lot later in the video, and there's a lot of beta material there, so I'll be covering that later. The OMORI Kickstarter was launched on April 22nd, 2014, had a goal of $22,000. Within the first few hours of the Kickstarter's launch, it had already surpassed half the asking price, and within the first 3 days, the project had been fully backed and already broken one stretch goal. After 45 days, the project had raised about $203,000, almost 10 times the amount that the team was asking for. The project seemed to be going well, despite the months of time in between posts, but Even then in the early days, this was for a good reason. The engine that was used in OMORI RPG Maker gets regular new releases, and unfortunately, at the time of the Kickstarter, it was just about to have its latest revision. This new version would help development time and decrease the time that it would take to port to a new system, meaning that it was crucial for the development team to take. In 2016, updates would release at around about every 2 to 3 months, and the pace kept well into 2017. However, in 2018, the team mostly went silent on Kickstarter, only releasing 2 updates. Both of them I can't really talk about due to one being backers only, and one of them just teasing a demo. In 2019, updates resumed and feedback from the demo was received, and things progressed with the release date of late 2019. Late 2019 came and the game was finally complete, yet the game was pushed back to early 2020 just to iron out some bugs. The game got delayed once more due to COVID-19, and in November of 2020, a brand new trailer released and the game was finally given a release date of the 25th of December. And, as we know now, the game finally released on that day. A lot of merch was produced for the Kickstarter in order to incentivize backers to donate, such as pins, shirts, CDs, and even an invitation to their launch party in LA. It's unknown if the launch party actually happened due to COVID, or if there was a refund or a Zoom call, but one person did actually buy it. The Kickstarter also had a load of stretch goals, and I believe that's what ultimately led to the downfall of the Kickstarter. They bit off way more than they could chew. Yeah, that was an awful saying, but I don't care. As of the time of writing this and recording this, most of the console ports haven't even been announced yet, besides the Nintendo Switch version. And to my knowledge, most of the merchandise has been shipped out, besides the walkthrough and the art book, which is still being worked on as of November in 2021. But those time gaps, man. Many backers felt that OMORI wasn't even a game anymore, but just a merch line for OMOCAT. The OMORI game Twitter account didn't tweet for longer than a year, creating uncertainty with backers if it was a scam or not. While the game finally released in 2020 and a lot of people were extremely happy, many backers still look on their decision to fund the game with uncertainty because of this huge gap and lack of communication. And while I think the game was worth it, I didn't wait 5 years for it. I didn't back the game, I couldn't have backed the game, I was a kid back then. But it would be hard to justify waiting 5 years for this game, no matter how good it was. Let's talk about the trailer that was released with the Kickstarter. It paints a very different image than the final game. The entire visual style is very different. Visuals are a lot rougher, which could have just been because it was early in its days, but the visuals have this real flashy LSD strip vibe to it, almost like a 100 Gex song came to life. Anyway, first thing that we see in the trailer is white space, which, believe it or not, has many differences. First of all, during the opening segment of the game, the door is actually there, as opposed to this trailer where it is not there. The sketchbook is a lot bigger, the laptop is in the front angle instead of the side. Mio is awake in the trailer, yet asleep in the final game. The welcome to white space message is no longer flipped and in this vertical line, but instead presented horizontally, and it's a lot easier to read. I'm very glad this change was made. This was also done with the "you've been here as long as you remember" message as well. Mari and OMORI sprites seem to be the exact same to the final game. The realistic laptop image, to my knowledge, is removed and was replaced with the interactive laptop that we now have to this day. The light bulb has been changed as well. In its close-up it has a shadow, which is not in the final game, but this light bulb is still used in the final game. I should mention this, but with all these elements such as the laptop and the tissue box, and probably a lot of other visuals in this trailer, were just made with the intention of being in the trailer and maybe weren't even supposed to be used in the final game. This clothing shot isn't on the final game, and like I said, was probably just made for the trailer. OMORI's walk animation here has been made a lot faster in the final game. The door to the neighbor's room has a background, while in the final game it has no background, which is somewhat similar to the light bulb, as they both had a place for light to travel to, suggesting a place where white space ended. But in the final game, white space is this huge void with no shadows and walls, meaning these assets could have just been unfinished, and I love overthinking things. The line "anything fun is just a distraction from how much the world actually sucks" does not appear in the final game, but did appear in a lot of pre-release material, such as this art from OMOCAT in 2013. This was also mentioned in an OMORI Boy comic, and I'm sure you're wondering more about this OMORI Boy comic, but please just stick with me to the end of the trailer, I promise you I'll explain it. The birthday cake visual does not appear in the final game as much as I know, but it was probably just added to show off the knife that OMORI has. The trailer then opens to a shot of the neighbour's room and oh boy, there's a lot to cover here. The entire perspective of the room's background has changed, meaning that many of the objects in the background look different from their in-game counterparts, but most of the objects in this room are actually still in the final game, just moved around. An example is this TV, which was moved to the corner. The flowers were spread in different positions, the bat stayed in position, the toaster, the mask, the present, the picture, all stayed in their current positions. The tree moved slightly and the tentacle from Abby was moved, but all objects that are in the room are just in different areas. The objects that aren't in the final game are the yellow cat on the table, the pool of eyes, and the mushrooms. That's not it though. Aubrey has a different dress colour, it's slightly brighter here, along with the bow being green. Oh, and this tree doesn't have a new song in the final game. After some visuals we see what I assume to be is Sunny's room, which is very different from the final game. The boxes are gone, suggesting that Sunny wasn't supposed to move out at this stage in development. Mio is still alive, which suggests that, well, they weren't going to be dead. Sunny now has a chair for their computer, a video game console, and a TV. Sunny's drawer has been expanded to have room for action figures on it. The closet has changed colours, and there was a notebook in the corner of his room. After some more visuals, we see Faraway Park, which now has some vending machines, as well as Hero being there. We then see Basil's grandma outside what I can assume to be an early version of their house. Note, in this scene she's actually outside and not sick in bed, which is where we see her for all of the game. After more visuals, we'll see an unused cutscene of all the characters in Faraway Town spinning on the road with a character with a guitar. I don't even know what this is, I'm gonna be honest, I got no idea. I think it's an early version of the road, but I don't know what this cutscene would have been used for. Let's move on. We then see these three characters, which are actually called Taku, Uni, and Meadow. These characters existed in really early builds of the game, but were scrapped for one reason or another, but do make minor appearances in Black Space. Taku, who appears most in the beach area, had the most coverage in OMORI, being hidden in a OMORI comic and was the basis for Abby's design. Uni is in the treehouse area, and Meadow can be found in the town area. The scene that can be found on Basil's tape has changed, and I'm not just talking about the colours, but the entire animation itself. The rest of the trailer just has animated parts, but there are still a few significant things to talk about. Sunny's wake up / sleep animation has changed drastically over time, looking more refined in the final build. The other significant things are the messages that appear on screen at the end of the trailer. The first message doesn't have a connection to any build of the game, but just related to the lore of the game, is what I know. Same thing with the second message. But the third message actually has early ties to OMORI. I know I've brought up this comic like 3 times and you don't know anything about it, but I promise, just please give me 2 minutes. Too bad saving the world isn't as easy as these games make it out to be is a line from one of the early comics, and same from the closest I've ever been to being happy is asleep. The final message is just lore, and that's the end of the 2014 OMORI trailer. It's finally time I can explain this to you. In an early Kickstarter update, OMORI wrote about the origins of OMORI. She posted the comics that I mentioned earlier on a Tumblr page called OMORI Boy. The first post was created on December 22nd, 2011, and it had OMORI on a porn website with the caption, "I'm OMORI and I fap and play video games." Yeah, I know. The blog would continue to post comics about self-perception, loneliness, death, boredom, weakness, old memories, and even suicide. As I said earlier, she eventually felt the character was trapped within this white background, so she decided to write a graphic novel named OMORI's Story. This was cancelled after she drafted later chapters and had the idea to turn OMORI into a video game, but the first chapter was still completed. And if you want to view OMORI or the entirety of OMORI's story, those links will be in the description. Now let's talk about some early old designs and art I found. I'd go through the stuff on the cutting room floor, but I'm gonna be honest guys, these social media links take up an entire page of my script. I want to be free, I'm going insane. Enough of that though, let's talk some old art and beta mechanics out of proof of them existing online. First up is this realistic portrait of Omori drawn in 2012. His design is basically the same as the one that's used in the final game, but this is a more realistic approach to the character, so it's more cartoonish in the game. In this GIF we see Omori with what could be early designs for Taku, Uni and Meadow, and this is evident by the question mark on Taku's face, which was used in the Omori Boy comics. This GIF has a similar art style to the sketchbook that can be found in Whitespace, so it could have just been an early design for one of those. This is an image from around about 2012, and it looks like an early image from Omori's sketchbook. I even thought it was from his sketchbook at first just because of how well it fits into the final game. This page has Taku in it, suggesting that she was meant to have a more major role in the story of the game, or at least just make more appearances than just black space. This is some early art of Basil, but instead of being called Basil here, his name was actually Rowan. Assuming that this is his real world form and not his headspace form, you can notice that his hair was actually supposed to be a lot darker instead of the lighter one that we have in the final game. This art shows off objects that could have been found in the neighbour's room, with the exception of the light bulb, which is from Whitespace. The caption also contains the quote of "anything fun is just a distraction from how much the world actually sucks," which, like I said earlier, was a lot prevalent in early material, suggesting that this quote would have been more related to the game during this phase of development, but became less relevant as time went on. I already went over the objects in the neighbour's room, so let's move on. Concept art of Cal and Sunny, which honestly looks super clean. Sunny's looking pretty close to his final design, and Cal does as well, but he's wearing different clothes and has a gym bag. Something to mention is that I think that Cal's a lot taller than Sunny than they are in the final game, but this is still really cool art. On August 14th, 2013, the Omori Game Twitter account tweeted this, a logo for the game featuring Omori and... wait, who's this? This is a character that we'll be seeing a lot when I dive into the early art of the game. This is a female version of Omori and was used a lot in early material, and for the most part isn't in the final game for at least its intended purpose. From this other early concept pixel drafts, you can see a gender-swapped version of Aubrey as well, suggesting that there would have been an option to play this game with a gender-swapped cast, but most of the characters go unused. The female character of Omori, however, is used in one scene of the game. You get given a potion from the Slime Girls, and when you drink it underwater, you transform into female Omori. In August of 2013, this was tweeted. The Flower Boy. This seems to be an earlier design for Basil and Headspace, and looks pretty similar to the final design. However, it does lack the outline of blue that all Headspace characters have. The game also has a different logo, with it being very rough and pixelated, the Japanese underneath it translating to Hikikomori. So here we have a screenshot from the Omori demo at a convention, and there's a lot to talk about here. Kel's name is Kelsey, the battle UI and background is completely different. Instead of all the characters' battle portraits being in the corners of the screen, they're now all down at the bottom, which is honestly quite similar to Earthbound, which is one of Omocat's main inspirations. Juice is called Energy, Cal has a surprise attack which isn't seen in the final game, and SpaceX Boyfriend is a lot smaller on screen. His design is also different. The shirt lacks the details that are found in the final game. His cape and hair and gun are also different colour. Here's an image of Sunny and Basil. The tweet says that it's Omori and Basil, but this could have just been to not spoil the game, or perhaps at this stage, Sunny actually had Omori's name and Sunny wasn't even a name. The logo featured here is really close to the one that's in the final game, just lacking the light bulb. Concept art of the two Aubreys, one Headspace and one Real World. Funnily enough, her name here is Aubergine. How do you say that? Aubergine. Oh, okay. It's a type of eggplant, and while this could have just been a funny haha, this could actually be Aubrey's real name. It's even referenced in a 2021 tweet from OMORI. This was an announcement post to say that the Kickstarter had 48 hours left till you could no longer donate. It shows concept art of Omori and Sunny with their female counterparts there. Another screenshot from the game, once again being Captain Spaceboy. Almost everything in his room has been changed, most of the bookshelves were deleted and only 2 remain in the final game. The background changed colours and became a lot more detailed with the planets. He was given a jukebox, which is a quest in the game. His bed became a lot cooler, going from this boring bed to this sick rocket ship bed. His traffic elevator button thing, I don't actually know what this is, I'm so sorry. It got removed. Also, the dialogue box had a huge facelift. The speaker's name was originally very close to the dialogue box, and the colours were a lot brighter and resembled Earthbound a lot more. This is the very first gameplay demo of OMORI. The first 30 seconds are just a trailer, and after the trailer we see a very different main menu screen. There's the light bulb which has focus, I think demos are in there, it's pretty cool, and OMORI is nowhere to be seen. We go into white space and see the earlier versions of the text from the trailer, as well as a really different theme for white space. This was used in the final game as one of the later white space tracks, and I think it's quite interesting because it's kind of like this theme got split into the 2 white space songs. I'll play them for you now, it's very interesting. Interacting with the laptop brings up a really different option about watching your favourite things, and it responds by saying how everything is bullshit. Fun. The neighbour's room theme is also very different, and the room itself is different, but I already covered that. Here's the comparison for the theme. Aubrey has a voice when speaking to us and has a really different text box, like I said earlier. The next song plays is Lost Then Found, and it's also very different from its final counterpart, and I'll give you a play for that now. snake wants food instead of giving Omori his budget, and we walk out into the forest. The area looks really different, and it's kind of weird to say this, but we don't really have a frame of reference to figure out where this is. Sure, you could say that just directly from the neighbor's room, but in the real game, you leave from a tree stump. I really don't believe that you just kind of walk out into a forest, so I'm a little lost. Most of the art used in the forest does look like its released counterpart. The eye in the neighbor's room could speak to you, and yeah, that's weird. You could buy stuff off of it, which, yeah, that's even weirder somehow. The ladder to Otherworld has changed colours slightly and has an outline in the final game. Now, when I first watched this trailer, I got really confused at this point. I was like, what is this yellow area? I've never seen it before. But I can tell you where this is. Moon bunnies. This is Otherworld. Completely different colours and everything. The trees are different, the ground is different, everything is different! Okay. This next scene we see Taco, just sort of chilling there. We already spoke about Captain Spaceboy and how his room is completely different, so I won't repeat myself on that, and I'll fast forward to the end of the demo, as most of this is stuff that I've already discussed. We see more of Otherworld and hear an early version of the song Stardust Diving, which I'll play for you now. And that's the demo. It's super weird to see Otherworld look so different with this yellow tree aesthetic. I would love to play this demo for myself, but unfortunately this is the only proof of it we really have of it existing, unless OMORI were to release it publicly. On to the next thing.
So this is some concept art showing how Sunny had jobs, and he did have jobs, but when I wrote this initially, I missed it. I didn't know that there was an entire jobs part of this game. So yeah, Sunny had jobs in the game, and this was the concept art for all the costumes. The tweet was written in 2019, and OMORI said that she might have to scrap this for time, but because of the extra time that was allocated to the game, it seemed like this finally got into the game, and that's really cool. So didn't know that though. I'm literally telling you this as I just found out about a minute ago that this was a feature. So the more you know, you know. I feel like that's why the game is so special, because you can play this game once and still not see half of it. That's why OMORI is special, because I didn't know that was a thing.
This is an early draft of a house in Faraway Town, like super early. It's really cool to see the creative process here. I'm not sure who this belongs to. My first thought was Basil because of the flowers, but most of the houses in Faraway Town actually match this design, along with Basil's house not having a garage, so I just think this was a generic house. Here's some really neat art of the Headspace and Faraway Town versions of each character. You can see that the Headspace versions are really close to their final designs, and the Faraway Towns are really similar, but Hero is wearing a hoodie instead of a long shirt, his hair's a bit different, and Kel's missing the design on his shirt still. This is some more concept art for Hero and Kel. Hero's design is extremely accurate to the final game, with just the hair being slightly different, and Kel's is almost complete, just missing the design still. Here we have a height chart from the main cast of the game. You can see that their designs are almost spot on, with different colours used. I just really like this drawing, it looks super nice. This is some early material showing a demo of the game in 2014. The screen is hard to see, but I'm pretty sure it's the neighbour's room and the people playing are wearing cosplay, which is honestly really cool to see, especially this early in the game's development. Remember, the game isn't coming out for another 6 years, yet these people are already cosplaying it. It's just phenomenal to see that support so early on. This was made in November of 2014 and shows us near identical versions of the characters. There's not much else here, just wanted to show you the characters being complete and this really nice art. Now, like I said, the OMORI Twitter account did not tweet for almost a full year, but we did get this massively overhauled battle screen. Here's the old Mother-inspired one, or Earthbound, and here's the new one. Somewhat similar to what we have today, but still very different. Let's go through all the changes. All battle portraits now use the final design, but have hearts underneath them instead of a life bar. Something else interesting is that the juice isn't alongside the heart bar, but down in the battle actions area. But the portraits look more like Polaroids, which I think is actually super cool because it plants the idea that this is from Basil's camera, and I really like that. Sure, that's in the final game as well, but I think this early version just makes it a lot more obvious. Going down to the battle actions area, we can see that the stress meter from the Basil and Sunny fight is here. Doesn't seem to be doing much, as 10 would be the value to end the battle as Sunny got extremely stressed, but it could have just been the standard meter with the skin on top. It seems that the attack and runaway options didn't have their own screen, but were a part of the whole menu screen, which I think is pretty cool. The only option missing here is the toy, which seems that it could have just been part of the pocket option now, which would have applied to items as well. So instead of going to separate things for toys and health items, it would have just been the same thing. The juice meter is now below the stress meter, next to a different heart indicator. This one seems to suggest that one hit was made out of 4 quarters, and it wasn't just one hit lose a heart, but if you get hit, it'll take away, say, 2 quarters of the heart. Not sure where emotions would have been displayed. I could theorize like maybe next to that, but I'm not sure. This is an early version of the wormhole fight, and we can see only a year after the last battle revision, the hearts have now been replaced with the heart meter, similar to the one used in the final game. But there originally wasn't a gap between the meter and the heart like there is in the final game. More differences here are the background, which was deeper in space originally, and the follow-ups looking a lot rougher compared to the final game. Here we have a draft of the 2014 trailer which I showed you earlier. Instead of Welcome to White Space, it says, No contact, shut in, hikikomori. Instead of You've been living here, it says, The closest I've been to being happy is being asleep, which as I've discussed earlier is from the OMORI Boy comics. The clock was replaced with clothing in the trailer, and the screen with the scratchings while OMORI walks was removed. The door wasn't present in the draft as well. Here we have some really early concept art of the neighbour's room. You can see the main cast there. This was tweeted in 2019, but made in 2012. Most of the elements in this room were in the original trailer, which I dissected already, and you can even see black space in the corner. I'm not sure if that's black space, but it's not white space because it's black, so I'm just gonna say it's black space. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. Here we have the black light bulb, which OMOCat said was used in the trailers. I wanted to confirm if this was actually used in the final game, so I took a screenshot from the game and put it in Photoshop and compared the two. From looking at my results, you can see that I'm horrible at doing this, but you can also see that, yeah, it's the same one as the final game. The image is super high quality, and it's clear to see why it lasted so long through development. It was good and didn't need updating. The tweet shows concept art of OMORI and female OMORI and reveals the reason it was scrapped in the first place. Too much time would have been spent redrawing all the assets. It makes complete sense, as most of the assets, like battle portraits, were hand-drawn, and with such a small team, this would have been a huge task, so it's kinda relieving because it would have taken a lot out of development time. This is a 2018 screenshot and shows how they actually make all of the battle UI. Like I said earlier, it's all hand-drawn and scanned with a printer. It's not very efficient because everything has to be perfect and you can't just undo on paper, but it lets the game have this really unique art style and seems worth it. The text has a really updated one compared to the follow-ups that we saw in the 2017 wormhole fight though. Here we have an early version of the vast forest, and the most interesting to note here is that there's no melons or anything. It's kinda lonely. But it is interesting to see it in this kind of infancy that feels close to the final game. Here are the tag images from the final game, but without their backgrounds, only pure colour. I know that wasn't really interesting, but I just wanted to show it. I think it's super cool how they did that, because they would have removed the background and added in their own hand-drawn background with every area in the game. So that's how they did it. From now on, things are getting kind of recent, about 2018, but I still want to cover it because there are changes. This is Mr. Jawsome's office. It's missing the lighting of the current version, a few decorations, but the biggest thing to me is the amount of detail that was added in the final release. Most of the sprites have been changed. The elevator doors, the desks, the shelves, the graph in the background, they all have so much more detail in the final release, and it just looks excellent. Once again, this is taken from 2018, but this time with the underwater highway leading into the yellow submarine. The background has been made a lot more simple compared with the earlier version. The trees in the background have been replaced with better, more fitting substitutes that take inspiration from coral. The bike guy in the background has been added, and as well as the construction workers. This is a really early version of Otherworld, which I somewhat covered in the original gameplay demo. It's super different from how it is today, with the different color scheme, different trees, and all the objects are now placed in different areas. I'm still amazed how this is Otherworld, that color scheme from the final game has been implanted in my brain, and it's just weird to see it so different. This is actually very interesting. If you go in the OMORI files, you can find the font, and Omo explains how she made the fonts here, one with her left hand and one with her right. The reason this was done is because doing it with your non-dominant hand makes it look a lot more erratic and crazy. There was a demo released in 2018 and I feel obligated to mention it, but holy shit, this video is getting really long and there's no way I could cover it if I wanted to make this video by the end of the year, so sorry. I will show some gameplay though. There's not much to show from this Kickstarter update, except from how the battle portraits were made and Space Boyfriend's overhaul. But it's interesting to note that this uses the female OMORI, and this was made in 2017, meaning that the female OMORI would have been scrapped pretty late in development, as she was still being featured next to regular OMORI. The Pinwheel Forest upper area had a massive overhaul from 2014 to 2017, highlighted in its Kickstarter update. You can see that the area has a lot more detail, Mari's mat was added, and more flowers were added as well as Kite Kid. This Kickstarter demo shows off the yellow submarine and tagging, but that's not what we're here for. We're here for that new UI. Yeah, okay, not much is different. Juice was originally a circle and had orange as its main colour scheme, and LVL was fully spelled as level and didn't use uppercase but lowercase text. Like I said before, OMORI is a special game, and while its development had its troubles and controversies, looking back on all this pre-release material is just astonishing to see all the improvement from this game. Indie games are really special. They don't have these large development teams with hundreds of people working on them. It's usually just a small team from like 1 to 20 people. So to see how much it's changed in the 5 years it was in development is just... it's something really special. Imagine if this game did actually launch in 2015. Sure, it would have had the same emotional impact as it does in the final game, but I think we'd have lost a lot of its personality, so even though I'm lucky that I can even say this because I didn't have to wait the 5 years, I'm thankful that all these changes were made. Thank you for watching my video. I'll see you in the next one. Oh, also subscribe!